The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in the empty space between three major star systems, a massive ring of metal and glass that could hold 10 million beings at once. Today, it held only 12. Ambassador Crixvel of the Torani Empire stood at the center podium. His blue scales caught the light from a nearby star as he spoke. His voice was calm, but his 4 eyes showed deep worry. "We must discuss the human problem," he said. The other 11 ambassadors shifted in their seats. Some made sounds of agreement, others stayed quiet. All of them knew what he meant. For 8,000 years, the galaxy had known war. Species fought over planets, resources, and old grudges, but they fought with rules. The covenant of civilized warfare had been signed by every space-faring race. It listed what was allowed in battle and what was forbidden. No weapons that destroyed entire planets, no attacks on civilian populations, no use of biological agents, no fighting near sacred sites, and most important of all, no deception in the declaration of war. These rules had kept the galaxy from destroying itself. Wars were fought between military forces in agreed-upon locations. They were bloody, yes, but they were fair. They were honorable. Then humanity arrived. "They have been part of our community for only 50 years, Crixvel continued. "In that time, they have signed the covenant. They have promised to follow our ways, but their actions in the Zarin conflict show us the truth. They do not understand war as we do." Ambassador Yelna of the Collective raised one of her many arms. She was a creature of crystal and light, beautiful and ancient. Her species had been traveling the stars when most others were still learning to make fire. "Perhaps we should hear from the human ambassador before we judge," she said. Her voice was like music. "They deserve to explain themselves." "Explain," the word came from Ambassador Grath, a massive being covered in thick fur. His species, the Mordek, were known as fierce warriors. "What is there to explain? They used forbidden tactics. They broke the covenant in ways we have never seen." "They won the war," Yelna said simply. The chamber went silent. It was true. The Zarin Empire had attacked human colony worlds without proper warning. It was a violation of the covenant, but a small one. Such things happened sometimes, and the response was supposed to be measured. Instead, the humans had done something no one expected. They had won the war in 6 months. The Zarin Empire had existed for 3,000 years. They controlled 200 star systems. Their military was one of the largest in the galaxy, and they had been brought to their knees by a species that had only been in space for 2 centuries. "How they won matters more than that they won," Grath growled. "They did not fight with honor." "Honor is a luxury for those who can afford it," a new voice said. Everyone turned to the entrance of the chamber. A human woman walked in. She was small compared to most of the beings present. Her skin was brown, her hair was gray, and her eyes were sharp like broken glass. She wore a simple uniform without medals or decorations. This was Admiral Sarah Chen, the human who had commanded their forces in the Zarin conflict. She was the most feared being in the galaxy, and she walked like she was going for a morning stroll. "I was not aware you were invited to this meeting," Crixvel said. "I invited myself," Chen replied. She took a seat at an empty podium. "You are discussing my actions. It seems fair that I should be here." "You broke the covenant," Grath said. "You used tactics that are forbidden." "I use tactics that work," Chen said. "There is a difference." Ambassador Thelos of the Ven hierarchy leaned forward. He was a thin creature with too many joints, and his voice clicked and buzzed when he spoke. "Perhaps you could explain to us what you did. Some of us have only heard rumors." Chen nodded. She did not seem bothered by the hostility in the room. If anything, she seemed bored. "The Zarin attacked our colonies without warning. They killed 40,000 civilians. According to your rules, we were supposed to declare formal war, meet their fleet in an agreed location, and fight until one side surrendered or was destroyed. That is the way of civilized warfare, Crixvel said. That is the way of stupid warfare, Chen replied. Several ambassadors made sounds of outrage, but she continued. The Zarin had more ships than us, better weapons, more experienced crews. If we fought them your way, we would lose, so we did not fight them your way. You attacked supply lines, Yilna said. Her voice was curious, not angry. We did. Your covenant says nothing about supply ships. They are considered non-military vessels, so we destroyed them. Every ship carrying food, fuel, and ammunition to the Zarin fleet. We did it quietly, with small ships that could not be detected. That is without honor, Grath said. A hungry soldier cannot fight, Chen said. A ship without fuel cannot fly. Within 2 months, half the Zarin fleet was stranded in empty space, waiting for supplies that would never come. You also spread false information, Thelos said. You made the Zarin believe their own admirals were traitors. Chen smiled. It was not a warm smile. We call it psychological warfare. We intercepted their communications and changed them. We sent fake orders from their high command. We made them distrust each other. By month 4, 3 of their admirals had been executed by their own emperor for crimes they did not commit. The chamber was very quiet now. Even Grath had nothing to say. You targeted their economy, Crixvel said slowly. You destroyed mining operations and trade routes, things that had nothing to do with the war. Everything has to do with the war, Chen said. War is not just about ships and soldiers. It is about will. It is about resources. It is about making your enemy understand that continuing to fight will cost them more than surrender ever could. And the incident at Zarin Prime, Yilna asked softly. Chen's face did not change, but something in her eyes grew cold. They killed our civilians. We reminded them that we could kill theirs. You did not kill them, Crixvel said. No, we put a bomb in their emperor's palace, a small one. It destroyed his favorite garden and killed no one. But it proved that we could reach him whenever we wanted, that if we chose to, we could end his bloodline in a single night. Assassination is forbidden, Grath said, but his voice was weaker now. We did not assassinate anyone. We simply showed them that we could. The emperor surrendered the next day. The war was over. We lost fewer than 1,000 soldiers. The Zarin lost their pride, their confidence, and their place in the galaxy, all because we refused to play by rules that were designed to keep wars going for years instead of months. Chen stood up. She looked at each ambassador in turn. You call your rules civilized. I call them comfortable. You have made war into a game with rules that everyone follows. And because everyone follows the rules, wars last for decades. Millions die in battles that change nothing. Your covenant does not prevent death. It just spreads it out over time. And what would you have us do? Crixvel asked. Abandon all rules, fight like animals. I would have you understand something, Chen said. Humans do not fight for honor. We do not fight for glory. We fight to win. And we will do whatever it takes to win as quickly as possible, because every day a war continues, more people die. Your way is not more civilized. It is just slower. She turned and walked toward the exit. This is not over, Grath called after her. The council will discuss sanctions. Chen stopped at the door. She did not turn around. Discuss whatever you want, she said. But remember this. The Zarin thought they could attack us and win an easy war. They were wrong. Anyone else who thinks the same will learn the same lesson. We did not start this conflict, but we ended it, and we will end any other conflict the same way. She left the chamber. The 11 ambassadors sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Yilna spoke. She frightens you, she said to the others. Good, she should. You support her, Grath demanded. I understand her, Yilna said. That is different. The humans are young. They have not had 8,000 years to develop comfortable rules for killing each other. They remember what war really is. They remember that it is not a game. They are dangerous, Crixvel said. Yes, Yilna agreed. And perhaps that is exactly what this galaxy needs. 3 months passed after the council meeting. The galaxy watched the humans carefully. Some species avoided them. Others tried to learn more about them. Trade continued, but there was tension in every interaction. Admiral Chen returned to Earth. She gave interviews and attended meetings. She explained human military thinking to anyone who would listen. Most did not understand. Some did not want to understand. But a few listened carefully. One of them was a young Torani officer named Vexgrill. He was the nephew of Ambassador Crixvel, and he had studied human history for years. He found their species fascinating in a way he could not explain. When he heard that Admiral Chen was giving a lecture at the Human Military Academy on Mars, he requested permission to attend. His uncle refused at first. The humans were dangerous, he said. Their ideas were poison. But Vexgrill was stubborn. He went anyway. The academy was not what he expected. It was not a grand building like Torani military schools. It was a collection of simple structures on a dusty red planet. The students wore plain clothes. The teachers did not have titles or honors displayed. Admiral Chen's lecture was held in a small room with uncomfortable seats. Vexgrill was the only non-human present. The students stared at him but said nothing. Chen walked in exactly on time. She carried no notes, no data pads. She just stood at the front of the room and looked at her students. Today we are going to talk about the nature of war, she said, and why everything you have been taught is wrong. The students laughed. They had heard this before. The galaxy believes war should be fair, Chen continued. They believe that both sides should have an equal chance, that battles should be fought between armies, not populations. They believe this because it makes them feel better about killing. She looked directly at Vexgrill. You, Torani, what does your species teach about war? Vexgrill felt every eye in the room turn to him. His scales flushed darker with embarrassment, but he answered. We are taught that war is a necessary evil, that it should be conducted with honor and ended as soon as possible through direct military victory. Chen nodded. And how long did your last war last, the conflict with the Venn hierarchy? Vexgrill hesitated. 43 years. How many died? Perhaps 200 million. And who won? Vexgrill was silent. The truth was, no one had won. The war had simply ended when both sides were too exhausted to continue. A treaty had been signed that changed almost nothing. That is what honor gets you, Chen said to the room. 43 years, 200 million dead, and nothing changes. That is the galactic way of war. Endless, bloody, pointless. She began to pace. Humans have been killing each other for thousands of years. We have tried every type of warfare imaginable. We have learned one truth above all others. The best war is a short war. The best victory is a quick victory. Every day a war continues, more people suffer. Not just soldiers, civilians, children, families. A student raised her hand. But Admiral, if we fight without rules, doesn't that make us monsters? Chen stopped packing. She looked at the student for a long moment. What is more monstrous, she asked, to use unconventional tactics and end a war in 6 months, or to follow the rules and let it drag on for decades? The Zarin War killed perhaps 10,000 beings total. Most of them were soldiers. A traditional war would have killed millions, and most of them would have been innocent people caught in the crossfire. She turned back to the class. Rules of war were invented by powerful people who did not want to lose power. They make war more predictable, more controllable. They benefit those who have the strongest armies because those armies will always win a fair fight. But they do not benefit the soldiers who die or the civilians who suffer. Vexgrill found himself speaking without meaning to. Then what do you believe in? If not honor, if not rules, what guides your actions? Chen looked at him again. This time there was something different in her eyes. Respect, perhaps, or recognition. Results, she said simply. I believe in ending wars as quickly as possible with as few deaths as possible. I do not care about honor. I do not care about tradition. I care about bringing my soldiers home alive and making sure my enemies never want to fight again. That sounds like cruelty, Vexgrill said. It sounds like survival, Chen replied. The galaxy is full of ancient species with ancient ways. You have been fighting each other for millennia. You have developed rules that let you keep fighting without ever really winning. We do not have that luxury. Humanity is young. We are few. If we fight your way, we will lose, so we fight our way. The lecture continued for another hour. Chen talked about specific tactics, about the psychology of conflict, about the importance of understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. Vexgrill listened to every word. When it was over, he approached the Admiral. She was gathering her things such as they were. Admiral Chen, he said, may I ask you something? She looked up at him. You already did, several times, but go ahead. Do you ever feel guilty for what you did in the Zaran War? Chen was quiet for a moment, then she sighed. I feel many things, she said, but guilt is not one of them. I did what was necessary to protect my people. I would do it again. The galaxy may hate us for it, but they also fear us now, and sometimes fear is the only thing that keeps the peace. She walked past him toward the door, then she stopped. You are different from other Taurani I have met, she said. You ask questions instead of making judgments. That is rare. I want to understand, Vexgrill said. Then keep asking questions, Chen said, and remember what you learn here. Someday, your species may need to fight a war it cannot afford to lose. When that day comes, think about what I have told you. She left. Vexgrill stood alone in the empty lecture hall for a long time, thinking about everything he had heard. He did not know it yet, but that day would come sooner than anyone expected. The Devourer fleet appeared at the edge of the galaxy without warning. No one knew where they came from. No one knew what they wanted. They simply arrived one day and began destroying everything in their path. They were not like any enemy the galaxy had faced before. Their ships were massive, black things that seemed to absorb light itself. Their weapons were strange and terrifying, and they did not respond to any attempt at communication. The first species to face them were the Pelani, a peaceful race of traders who had not fought a war in centuries. The Devourer fleet destroyed their homeworld in 3 days. 12 billion Pelani died. The survivors scattered across the galaxy, refugees with nothing left. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Every species sent representatives. Even the humans, who had been quietly building their strength since the Zaran War, sent a delegation. But this time, it was not Admiral Chen who spoke for humanity. She had retired 2 years earlier, content to teach and advise. The new voice of human military power was General Marcus Webb, a younger man with sharp eyes and a calm voice. We have analyzed the Devourer attacks, Webb said to the Council. They follow no pattern we can understand. They do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They simply destroy. Then we must unite against them, Ambassador Crixvell said. Form a combined fleet and meet them in battle. That will not work, Webb said. Why not? Because they are stronger than us, all of us combined. Webb pulled up a holographic display. It showed the size of the Devourer fleet compared to the combined military forces of the galaxy. The difference was staggering. Their ships are larger, more heavily armed, and more numerous, Webb continued. A direct confrontation will end in our defeat. The Covenant's rules of engagement assume rough equality between combatants. We do not have that here. Then what do you suggest? Yilna asked. Webb looked around the chamber. We suggest that you let us handle this. The reaction was immediate. Shouts of protest, growls of anger, clicks of disbelief. Even Yilna looked surprised. You cannot be serious, Grath rumbled. Your fleet is even smaller than ours. Our fleet, yes, Webb agreed. But war is not just about fleets. You speak of your unconventional tactics, Crixvel said. His voice was cold. The same tactics you used against the Zarin. The same principles, Webb said, adapted to a different enemy. Those tactics work against species that can be frightened or deceived, Thelo S. said. The Devourers show no emotion. They cannot be manipulated. Every enemy can be defeated, Webb said. You just need to find the right approach. And if your approach fails, Grath demanded, what then? Webb was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke with complete honesty. If we fail, you will have lost nothing but time. The combined fleet would have been destroyed anyway. But if we succeed, you will have learned something valuable. That the old ways of war are not the only ways. That survival matters more than honor. The council debated for hours. Some wanted to reject the human offer completely. Others were desperate enough to try anything. In the end, they reached a compromise. The humans would be given 3 months to implement their plan. If they showed results, the council would support them. If they failed, the combined fleet would engage the Devourers in traditional combat. It was not much of a compromise. Everyone knew that 3 months was barely enough time to do anything, but it was something. Webb accepted the terms. He returned to Earth and began preparations. What happened next would change the galaxy forever. Vexkrill had not forgotten Admiral Chen's words. After the lecture on Mars, he had continued his studies of human military history. He read everything he could find about their wars, their tactics, their way of thinking. When the Devourer threat emerged, he was one of the first to suggest that the humans might have ideas worth hearing. His uncle had ignored him, of course. But now, with the Council's compromise in place, Vexkrill saw an opportunity. He requested a transfer to the human task force. His superiors thought he was insane. Some called him a traitor, but he went anyway. He arrived at the human military base on Luna to find chaos, or what looked like chaos. Hundreds of humans ran around, shouting orders, carrying equipment, staring at screens full of data. Vexkrill had never seen anything like it. General Webb found him standing in the middle of it all, looking lost. "You're the Torani who studied with Admiral Chen," Webb said. It was not a question. "I attended one of her lectures," Vexkrill said. "She mentioned you, said you asked good questions." Webb handed him a data pad. "Can you read Human Standard?" "Yes." "Good, read this. Then come find me, we have work to do." Webb walked away before Vexkrill could respond. He looked down at the data pad. The title of the document made him stop breathing for a moment. Operation Impossible, Strategic Analysis of the Devourer Threat. He read it 3 times. Each time he understood a little more, and each time he became more convinced that the humans were either geniuses or completely insane. Probably both. The Devourer fleet had destroyed 14 star systems by the time the humans launched their first operation. The galaxy watched in terror as world after world fell silent. Billions died. The Council prepared its combined fleet for what everyone assumed would be the final battle. But the humans were doing something else. They had sent small ships to every system the Devourers had destroyed, not to fight, to observe, to collect data, to understand. What they learned changed everything. The Devourer ships were not empty machines. They were living things. Massive creatures from somewhere beyond the galaxy, creatures that fed on the energy of stars and the matter of planets. They were not evil. They were not even aware of the civilizations they destroyed. They were simply hungry. This information would have been useless to most species. You cannot negotiate with hunger. You cannot frighten it. You cannot deceive it. But the humans saw something else. They saw an opportunity. "They're not ships," Webb explained to his team. Vexkrill was there taking notes, trying to keep up. "They're animals, Very large, very dangerous animals, but animals follow patterns. They have instincts, they have weaknesses. What weaknesses? Vexgrill asked. Webb smiled. It was the same smile Chen had worn years ago, cold, knowing. They follow the densest energy sources. That's why they attack populated worlds. More energy, more food. But what if we gave them something even more tempting? The plan was insane. The humans proposed creating artificial stars, not real ones which would take thousands of years, fake ones, massive projections of energy that would look like stars to the devourers but lead nowhere. You want to trick them, Vexgrill said slowly. Lead them away from populated systems. Lead them into a trap, Webb corrected. The projections will guide them to a specific location, a dead system with nothing living, and there we'll give them what they really want. What? More energy than they can handle. The humans had developed a new weapon. They called it the Nova device. It could trigger a premature supernova in any star. They had never used it because it would destroy everything within several light years. It was a weapon of absolute last resort. But in a dead system, with no life to protect, it would simply be a very large bomb. You're going to blow up a star, Vexgrill said. He could not believe what he was hearing. With the devourers inside the system. They feed on stellar energy, Webb said. Let's see how they handle all of it at once. The operation took 2 months to prepare. Human ships, aided by volunteers from a dozen species, set up the energy projections. They created a trail of false stars leading from the Devourer fleet's current position to the dead system of Karath 7. Some of the projections failed. Others were too weak to attract attention, but enough worked. Slowly, the Devourer fleet began to change course. The great black ships turned away from the populated systems and followed the trail of light. Vexgrill watched from a human observation ship as the first Devourer vessels entered the Karath system. They moved toward the star like moths to a flame. More followed, then more. How many are in the system? Webb asked. 80% of the fleet, came the answer. The rest are still following the trail. Close enough. Webb looked at his tactical officer. Activate the Nova device. Vexgrill had seen many things in his life. He had watched stars rise and set on 100 worlds. He had witnessed battles that shook the foundations of empires. He had never seen anything like this. The star at the center of the Karath system began to glow brighter, then brighter still. Alarms screamed on every ship within sensor range. Energy readings went off the scale. And then the star exploded. The light was so intense that the observation ship's screens went dark to protect the crew. Even so, Vexgrill felt the heat on his scales. He heard humans gasping, praying, cursing. When the screens cleared, the Karath system was gone. In its place was an expanding cloud of fire and debris that would burn for centuries. And the Devourer fleet, or most of it, was gone with it. The remaining Devourer ships scattered. Without the main fleet, without coordination, they became confused. They wandered aimlessly for days, unable to find food, unable to understand what had happened. The combined galactic fleet, which had been waiting for the inevitable battle, found them one by one. Without the overwhelming numbers, the Devourers were vulnerable. Ship by ship, creature by creature, they were destroyed. It took 3 more months to hunt down the last of them, but when it was done, the threat was over. The galaxy was saved. And everything had changed. The Galactic Council met again. This time, the chamber was full. Every species that had survived the Devourer threat sent representatives. Many of them had fought alongside the humans in those final months. Many of them had learned things they would never forget. General Webb stood at the center podium. Admiral Chen was there too, brought out of retirement for this moment. Vexgrill sat with the Torani delegation, a hero to some, a traitor to others. "We have won," Webb said simply. "Not because we were stronger, Not because we had more ships. We won because we refused to accept that we could not win. We found a way. You broke every rule, Grath said, but his voice was different now. There was respect in it. You destroyed a star. You manipulated creatures you did not understand. You took risks that could have killed us all. Yes, Webb agreed. And we would do it again, because the alternative was extinction. Crixvel stood. He looked old, tired. The Devourer War had cost him many things, including his certainty about the way the galaxy should work. The covenant of civilized warfare was written for a different time, he said slowly. A time when our enemies were like us, when wars were about territory and resources and pride. The Devourers showed us that not all enemies can be fought with honor. Then what do you propose? Yilna asked. I propose that we learn, Crixvel said, that we study human tactics, that we understand their way of thinking, not to replace our values but to expand them, to be ready for enemies who do not share our rules. And what of the humans? Thelos asked. What role do they play in our galaxy now? Admiral Chen stepped forward. She was older now, gray and worn, but her eyes were still sharp. We will be what we have always been, she said. Different, sometimes frightening, always honest about what we are. We fight to win. We do what is necessary. If that makes us monsters in your eyes, so be it. But know this. We are monsters who will fight for you, who will die for you, who will destroy stars if that is what it takes to keep you safe. She paused. We did not ask to be your protectors, but we will be if you let us, because the galaxy is our home now too, and we protect our home. The chamber was silent. Then slowly Grath stood. The massive Mordak looked at Chen for a long moment. Then he did something no one expected. He bowed. One by one, other ambassadors followed. Not all of them, some never would, but enough to show that something had changed. The galaxy had standards for war. Those standards had kept the peace for thousands of years, but they had also kept the galaxy weak, divided, unable to face a true threat. Humanity had changed that, not by being stronger but by being smarter, by being willing to do what others would not, by refusing to accept impossible odds. The old rules did not die that day, but new ones were born alongside them, rules that included concepts the galaxy had never considered: surprise, deception, adaptation. Ideas. Years later, Vexkrill returned to Mars. He was older now, a respected figure in the new Galactic Defense Force. He had fought in 2 more wars, both against enemies who thought the galaxy was weak. Both wars had ended quickly, decisively, in ways that would have been impossible before. Admiral Chen had died 3 years earlier, but she had left something behind: a school, a place where beings from every species could learn the human way of war. Vexkrill stood at the entrance, watching students from a dozen worlds walk through the doors. Some of them looked nervous, others looked excited, all of them looked determined. A young human woman approached him. She wore an instructor's uniform. You're the Torani from the stories, she said, the one who learned from Admiral Chen. I attended one of her lectures, Vexkrill said, long ago. She talked about you sometimes, said you were the first to really understand. Vexkrill thought about that, about the lecture hall on Mars, about the chaos on Luna, about the star that died so that the galaxy could live. I understood one thing, he said finally, that the universe does not care about honor or rules or tradition. It only cares about survival, and the humans, for all their strangeness, understand survival better than anyone. The instructor nodded. That's why we're here, to teach others. To teach them to win. To teach them to live, she smiled. Same thing, really. Vexkrill watched her walk away. Then he entered the school himself. There was still much to learn. There always was. In the deepest reaches of space, beyond the edge of the galaxy, something stirred. Something larger than the Devourers. Something older than the stars themselves. It had been watching for a very long time, watching the galaxy destroy itself slowly, predictably, following rules that made no sense. Now something had changed. New ideas had emerged, new ways of fighting, new ways of surviving. The thing in the darkness considered this. It was patient. It had all the time in the universe, but it was also curious. Perhaps when it finally moved toward the light, it would find worthy opponents at last. Or perhaps it would find more prey. Either way, it would be interesting. The galaxy had changed. The humans had shown everyone that rules were meant to be broken, that ideas were more powerful than armies, that the only true defeat was the failure to adapt. Whatever came next, the galaxy would be ready. Because they had learned from the best. And the best were just getting started.